It's Wednesday night, and we're live from Oakdale, Washington, in the Educated Touch studio. Welcome to Ethics Outside the Box, with your host, Nathan Nordstrom. Special guests include... and you. Here he is, Nathan Nordstrom.
Welcome to this wonderful week of Ethics Outside the Box. We are going to be talking ethics like we do every week for the year of 2018. We're very excited to connect with a whole new subject. We've gone through the NCB's Code of Ethics, and we've gone through Standard of Practice 1, which is a really good opportunity for us to start looking at a whole new standard of practice and kind of the categories that go along with it. Before we get too far in, I'd like to introduce my guest. It's Ms. Jane Irving out of Maine. Jane, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Nathan. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for joining me. What are you doing with your practice? What are you doing with work? How are you staying busy in the massage therapy world?
Well, Nathan, I've been practicing for years and years and years. I became an educator probably about 10 years ago, and I have an online education business. So all of my continuing ed is delivered online via streaming video.
Wonderful, wonderful. So are you doing both webinars and distance learning or home study, or is it mostly home study? Is it mostly distance learning? How do you balance those out?
It is mostly home study. It's
okay.
all pre-recorded.
Wonderful.
And we have several treatment modalities in our library of courses, all accompanied by streaming video.
Beautiful. It's so much easier to look at a good webinar or streaming video presentation and kind of get some visual connection with what's going on than when you're kind of stuck in and say, okay, well, I don't know really what they're actually talking about on this page in this book. It's really nice that you have video. How long have you been doing the online education?
A little more than 10 years.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. You started in the early days.
I did, way back when. It was about a 3-year learning curve, but it all worked out in the end.
Absolutely. It always has a challenge to it, but it also has a blessing to it. All right. So there's also one other thing that I want to let people know about. When you're looking on the video, you're probably seeing this white string that's around my neck. It happens to be 100 degrees in Washington State, and my office is not very well insulated, so it's hot as can be. So I actually have one of these little TheraPearl eye masks that's resting on the back of my neck to keep me from overheating, because by gum, middle of the summer starts to get a little toasty warm. So very grateful for the performance health people. They know them as BioFreeze and TheraPearl and that whole brand name. But they gave me one of these color changing ones to try out. And so I thought, you know what, no better time than when it's 100 degrees to put it on the back of my neck and see if I can make it for an hour without passing out from getting too hot. So, all right. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to take us back to, or the next thing, I guess. It's not the first thing. I've already done the first thing. The next thing I want to take us to is the location that we'll be looking at for our topics today. We have the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Body Workers. That's the NCBTMB.org. This website has a huge amount of information. Generally, when you get to the homepage, I've got it a lot larger here for people to see, but it usually looks about like that. When you go all the way down to the bottom of any of the NCB pages, you're going to find on the About section the Code of Ethics and Standard of Practice. Once you click on Standard of Practice, you come up to this wonderful page that has at the top that says, of course, Standard of Practice. We're going all the way down to Standard 2. Standard 1 felt like I was talking about it forever because it's A through V, so it's almost through the entire alphabet. But Standard 2 is not as long, but Standard 2 has a lot more, in my mind, a lot more in-depth pieces to really connect with and get excited about. So with Standard 2, today's discussion, we have Standard 2, which is legal and ethical requirements. I love this argument. Jane, have you ever looked and kind of pulled apart the differences between a legal legal problem and an ethical problem?
I think back in the day I have.
I love this argument because you can be following the laws of the land but not following your ethics. You can be following your ethics and not be following the laws of the land. And there aren't a huge number of cases like that, but there are things that many people in history have done that were the ethical right choice, but the laws were not appropriate or were not a safe choice. So being able to stand up for your ethical responsibilities means that you can feel comfortable with the results of your choices. I always like to say when someone has a ethical dilemma, when their gut is feeling unethical about something, and they say, well, I feel like I need to break the law, I say, okay, are you comfortable with the consequences if you choose to break the law? And if they can say, well, yeah, I broke the law and I'm doing what's right, then I can say, okay, well, then you've gone through the ethical consequences and you're willing to pay those dues because you believe that law is wrong. Most recently, I've seen this across the country with a unique aspect where we're talking about marijuana, hemp, all of those types of products that are really coming into the industry. If we go back 10 years, very few states were even looking at it as a product of legal aspect, and they were kind of just the states were trying to shy away. Well, people were pushing it as a product that they really believed in. And so people were doing illegal things, but according to them, it was an ethical behavior, an ethical standard or choice for them to say this is a product that works for us. I don't have a argument either direction on this, but just to remind people that legal battles are one thing and ethical battles are another. Internal ethical works are really important to be connected with. So as we go through, we'll talk about the law and we'll talk about the ethical side of the requirements that go along with the law. So the introduction to Standard 2 is a certificant must comply with all legal requirements in applicable jurisdictions regulating the profession of therapeutic massage and bodywork. In his or her professional role, the certificant shall, Standard 2A, obey all local, state, and federal laws. Now, Jane, this is a huge statement, even though it only looks like, let's say, 2, 4, 6, 7 words. So are there any laws that you can think of that massage therapists may not be excited to follow?
Well, there could be laws prohibiting them from allowing signage in front of their buildings. Absolutely.
And that would hinder them professionally.
Correct.
So these types of laws aren't just, I mean, we're not talking about don't get a DUI. I mean, yes, that is there as well. But we get into the finite, the smaller things, and because we were talking about local jurisdictions, not just the federal or state laws. We have massage therapists who have an office at home, and so feasibly their homeowners association may have some jurisdiction in what they can and cannot do. This is part of those policies where we kind of say, what is it that we do when we come across a law that we don't like, such as signage? If they can't have signage on the front of their building, do we decide to jump ship and break the law and put a sign up anyway? Well, if we're following the standard of practice, we don't. But what are some things, Jane, that you think a person should do if they come across signage issues? Or any legal issues?
Well, I think they should refer back to their local zoning ordinances. So, and I think that I was at a town meeting just a couple of weeks ago, and there was a big argument over signage, and the massage therapist doesn't want a sign because she doesn't want people knocking on her door at 11 o'clock at night looking for a massage. The town, yeah, the town wanted her to have a sign because all businesses have signs. So then we started to go down the road of, well, our businesses required to have signs. Now I live in a small town, so nobody was quite sure if businesses required signs. We all know that businesses want signs. So in this case, she didn't want a sign. She was able to make her argument, and they let her slide without a sign.
How interesting! I like the argument. Do all businesses have signs? Because I know I have friends who have mail order businesses, and they don't care to have a sign. They work out of their garage, or they work out of a space that they just don't really need a sign. A massage therapist who goes by word of mouth really wouldn't need a sign if that's not business savvy for them. I actually refer to a local set of laws out in Florida several years ago. Had a massage therapist who came to me, and she had her homeowners association decided that they would not allow 3 types of businesses to be in practice for certain periods of the day in their community. One of them was network marketing or multi-level marketing. Second one was aesthetics, so cosmetologists and estheticians. And then the third one was massage therapists. And that was going to limit her practice very significantly and only allow her to see clients, I think it was from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock, right in the middle of the day. And so she went to her homeowners association meeting, and she got the quote from the president of the homeowners association that those types of businesses promote greed and greed and sexuality or something of that nature. And she just flipped. She was so mad, and she stood up at that board meeting, and she talked to the entire board and would not make eye contact with the president, and presented her case very succinctly about this is what I do, this is why I do it. I'm here to work on muscular tissue dysfunctions. People are stabilizing. People are able to walk better. People who have pain. She just went on and on and on. She ended, and she said, I want the board to make a decision and to vote on this, and not just take the president's word on it. And so the board made a vote, and that went down. They stopped the law. They said, no, the rule, that didn't make sense, because really good people doing really good things can have a good effect on the community. And so it is important to stand up for yourself. And I know that a lot of us have different challenges in life. What is the most well-known fear in all the land is public speaking. I don't think you or I have that fear, Jane, but we know a lot of people who do. And so being able to look at going and speaking in front of a town council or a board of some sort would make some people really uncomfortable. But truth be said, if you don't like the law, that's going to be the first place you're going to have to go. Your thoughts, Jane?
Right. Yeah, and I think sometimes we think that the people sitting on the board know more than we do, when the reality is sometimes people end up on the board because no one else ran. So in the midst of this is kind of a funny story, in the midst of going down this road of supporting this massage therapist at this meeting, I asked my husband and my next door neighbor, who was over at the time, I said something about home-based businesses, and they said, you need a permit for a home-based business. And I said, you're going to be kidding me. I've had a home-based business for 10 years. I don't have a permit. Yep. So my next door neighbor's an architect, and he said, well, I have to have a permit. So I just went to the town secretary, and I said, what's the scoop on the permit situation? And she said, well, if you don't have people coming to your house, then you don't need a permit. So there's a case where I could have sweated it out and been concerned and nervous, but I called the secretary, and she told me that I didn't need a permit. So, luckily it all worked out. But I also think that as MTs, many of us are self-employed, and you have to be willing to make the call and ask the questions, or you need to go work for somebody else. But when you're self-employed, you have to be multifaceted and resourceful.
I don't think that massage therapists, when they come out of massage therapy school, when they're just hot on their trail and jumping for joy, are really thinking, okay, let me figure out what business practices I have to have, what policies I have to follow, what my ordinances are, how do I get a business code, how do I write a contract, how do I Massage therapists don't think that way as a general rule when they come out of massage school. They're just excited to be working on someone. And this is one of those things that we continue to see a challenge with in massage therapy.
I would agree with that. And if we look at people, well, I graduated from massage school in 1987. There were no rules. So as the profession has evolved and they've created more rules, I think those of us who have been in the profession for years kind of backpedaling. Even now, I still say that's a rule. Who even knew it was a rule? There were no rules.
When did they put that into effect? I love that one because the state boards continue to do that. I used to be in Savannah, Georgia, and I ran a massage school out there. And one thing that I would tell all my students is before you graduate, you need to go to the state licensing board and sign up for their email news blast. Their email letter that comes out once a month that says what's going on, what's changing, what's new. And so many of my students would come back to me a year after they graduated and say, hey, I was wondering about doing this and doing that. I said, you realize that that's not okay. That's against the new rules. And they're like, wait, what new rules? And I'm like, okay, did you read that email that they sent to you, or did you just round file it? And most people are like, oh, yeah, I guess I should probably read that. Your state licensing boards have a standard that they want to set. They have statements that they have, and they are changing. I'm currently in the state of Washington, and I just got an email just this week about new changes that they're looking to put into effect for policies for everything from the perennial floor and the pelvic floor all the way to documentation and record keeping. And if massage therapists don't stand up and go out and actually speak their mind about how it's going to affect their practice, the state licensing board will assume they understand everything and can go and put into effect the laws that they think are right. That's not always.
Yeah, that's a problem in a lot of states. In Maine, it's the wild, wild west. I don't think we have many rules up here. So if anybody wants to come to Maine, we'd love to have you. Other than the sub-zero temperatures in January, it's not a bad place to be. But, back in the day before state licensure, we had to go city to city and town to town. And so if you practiced in 3 or 4 different towns, you had to go to all those different towns for licenses. And most of the time, who even knew you needed a license for the individual towns? I do think, though, we're lucky in a lot of ways because most states do not require massage therapists to have sinks. If you're an esthetician, you are required to have some sort of water source. So I'm hoping that doesn't catch on I don't even understand why. We have to wash our hands in between clients. So why that isn't a rule everywhere is beyond me. Yeah. But the other problem is house calls. I know a lot of states are now having problems with MTs who do house calls, and they want to tell us how we should manage that. I did house calls for years and years and years, and I made quite a bit of money, and it was a great gig. So sometimes too many rules is not the best way to go.
It does limit a lot of the policy or a lot of the activity that you can do. I do see that it's funny when I start looking at different groups who are trying to put in different rules and organize different policies and that kind of stuff. You then start seeing, hopefully, knock on wood, you start seeing the massage therapists in specific groups stand up and say, wait a second, that's what I do. I know there's a couple of internet-based connection websites. One's called Soothe, which is a massage, Uber for massage therapy is kind of, I think, their tagline. So people can go onto the app and can schedule a massage, and then the massage therapist will come to them. So it's an out-call based massage practice. And when a state decides, hey, we want to do something about our out-call massage therapists and making sure they're all legit, then we start looking at these groups that need to stand up and say, wait a second, this is part of our business, this is part of our practice. Just recently, I got word that the city of Philadelphia is trying to put in some laws regarding massage therapy and illicit massage spas and massage places, and it would affect every spa that is in the Philadelphia area. It would give them a taxable expense to the city, but it would also affect the massage therapist in the direction in which it's presented. Currently, the policy really would affect the massage therapist and the spas that are there. It's one of those things where I really do love to see states recognize and organize something that is appropriate for licensure. But as soon as we get into the city by city, like you had to deal with back in the day, that becomes tedious. It becomes really, really challenging. I know California has this problem where you have a statewide optional certificate, but county by county, they can have more or less, or you can get a county certificate with a certain number of hours of education. Following the laws of the land isn't a passive statement. It's not something that you kind of go, okay, I'll do it if it's easy or if I get to it. Following the laws of the land really becomes a challenge in the pieces that we're kind of really looking at that depth. It's not just if I want to or if I think it's appropriate, I'll follow it. It's an active process to say, okay, I can fight back on laws that I don't think are fair. I can actively go about that. I've had plenty of opportunities on my volunteer side of life where I've actually had to stifle my own voice as a massage therapist because of my volunteer role. And I've asked other therapists to step up and go out and speak regarding their beliefs on that subject. It's an interesting dynamic to have professionally. All right, so let's also look at the second piece here, because if we just look at the local, state, and federal laws, we can quantify those. But I think a lot of those come back to a piece that really is our behaviors and the results of our behaviors. So refrain from any behavior that results in illegal, disciplinary, or unethical actions. Now, they're not actually only talking about the laws. They're not talking about only your governing bodies, because that would be only the illegal actions, right? But we also talk about disciplinary action. And who might you get a disciplinary action from, Jane?
Well, I think it says discriminatory.
Gosh, I should start reading it, right? Discriminatory. So, good morning. Yes, discriminatory. So, and then unethical action. So who could define if our actions are ethical or unethical?
Well, what if, remember that case where the baker didn't want to make the wedding cake for the gay couple?
Correct.
What if a massage therapist felt that working on homosexual individuals violated their religious rights? What would happen? What would you do?
Oh, that's an odd one, isn't it? Because it's discrimination.
It is.
And do we have any statements in ethics or in our standards of practice and our scope of practice or a code of ethics that say that we cannot discriminate for any other reason other than for the client's better good.
Is that what it says?
That's what it says. That's okay. So looking at, we've got a couple of different directions here. For NCB, that's the statement for the code of ethics. For the AMTA, I think they have slightly different wording that actually doesn't go that in depth. And then state by state, in Oregon, it does say something about discrimination. In Washington, it does. I am such a geek. Jane, I'm so sorry about this. In California, it does not. And then the Midwest rarely is going to have something about discrimination. I think Texas says something about it. Georgia does not. South Carolina does not. And then I'm not really high on the New England connections there for which ones do and do not. But many of the states in their state laws actually say discrimination. You have to only use clinical discrimination for purposes of public safety.
So what if a massage therapist decided that they would not treat or they would not perform a massage on a homosexual, and then that person contacted the NCBTMB and made a formal complaint, and the massage therapist said, but wait a minute, that's against my religious freedom to charge me with discrimination for that.
So I'm going to go down this fictional rabbit hole because it's a big rabbit hole. So
it's giant.
Yeah. So the Ethics and Standards Committee would then have a case that they would need to review, and they would go directly by the ethics and standards that are written. So that would be a piece for them to look at. However, I think the other one, so either way, the NCB would either remove their board certification or would express to them something and say, okay, you followed your ethical standards, and they would let it go. However, they don't let it go without first reporting to your state licensing board on actions that have been taken. So your state licensing board would then get the case, the information. Your state licensing board would then have an opportunity to look at it and see if you followed their code of ethics, and vice versa. If something comes before the state licensing board, it's then put to the NCB if you are board certified. It also then goes to your professional liability coverage, which would be Massage Magazine, Insurance Plus, ABMP, AMTA. It would go to any of those groups as well, so that everyone has an opportunity to say, wait a second, are they still meeting the expectations for their association with this group, whoever this group is? So
interesting.
It becomes a hullabaloo. I love
it does become a hullabaloo.
I love the case out of Chicago. This one so many years ago, and it's been talked about in so many different ways, but people haven't really connected the names. A husband and wife, they met as his wife was a massage client, and they got married, and then in a really ugly divorce, the wife accused him of doing inappropriate things with clients on the table. And
oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah, and he lost his license. And in a reflexive response, the wife lost her license as well later for doing inappropriate things, or for the accusation of doing things inappropriately. This is the stuff that we don't really talk about when we talk about make sure not to have sex with your clients, the unethical aspect of having relations with your clients. But really this aspect of what is built in your relationship if you're starting out the relationship as a therapist client, and then if anything goes awry, you now have that black eye already, and that person has a perception of you as being freely willing to date your clients. It's a dangerous spot. And so
it is. I don't think anybody should be dating clients. Or, I mean, you could actually, and this goes back to how we need to document. So if you are if you have your appointment book and you can show that appointments ended on May 30th and you did not start dating this person until, September, because that's where the emails became more personal, then you might be able to work it out if you did in fact not date your client.
See, and I love the concept of document, because depending on the state, some states actually have a 6-month window where you actually have to separate yourself for a 6-month period of time. Other states just say you can't date your clients. So then you kind of go, okay, you paid today, but I'm not going to see you in the future. So tomorrow you want to go out on a date. That doesn't really work very well because you have changed the perception of the relationship that you have. So those pieces really kind of become icky. But it's following the ethics so that you don't have anything happen that could be a discriminatory action against you. Because first of all, I've always told my kids this: please discipline yourself because my discipline will hurt a lot more. And it's not just a father talking to their child statement. That's truth. Anytime you get disciplined from a third-party source, an external source, it's always more painful and always more frustrating and always costs more. So learning it internally and taking care of it yourself is such a great way to connect and remind yourself what exactly needs to happen, because then you're taking a step out of the realm of what has to happen that someone else could give you consequences. Knowing your own consequences is really beneficial, and structuring yourself so that you don't have to find yourself illegal. That kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Standard 2A. We were talking about going out and putting yourself out there and connecting and knowing what the laws are so that you can really have a good organization and you're not surprised by the laws. You're not surprised by having something happen to you. For me, if I came out one day in my office and someone said, "I'm sorry, you can't have a front desk that is that close to your treatment table," it's just a bizarre idea. I can't even think of another realm, but something that was completely abstract. I'd say, well, why? And I'd want to know the reasons why. And that piece would really fall back on me because I didn't follow and listen and follow up with what the laws are and what the changes in the laws are. These are all pieces that if they have to come out and tell me that I'm doing something wrong, now I have to suffer the consequences.
Mm-hmm.
On a smaller scale, a much smaller scale, I was just talking to a spa, and the spa has every client, after they have their massage, they get a survey. And so the survey goes through and asks several generalized questions, and those surveys all come into the system. And at the end of the month, they go through the general category of the surveys and pull out any positive and negative feedback that has been put onto the survey. And this is a great tool for that spa. They really get to help themselves improve and kind of overcome challenges and get better. But then it was pointed out that if you have to wait until the survey is taken and it gets back at the end of the month, then you've lost that immediate response to correct the behavior. And you've already offended that client enough for them to respond on that survey in a negative way. So being able to be self-responsible as the massage therapist, step in and ask the client, "Hey, how's it going? Is there anything that I could have done better? Or how's that pressure? Is that pressure too much? Okay, wonderful. Let me back it off." Those are the inklings of moments that can give you the best possible service. And if you miss that opportunity, then have backups to backups so that you can understand, you can follow through, and you can connect. I tell massage therapists regularly that if you are looking at your state board's rules and laws, whenever you hear about them changing, most of the time people don't hear about them until they're already implemented and creating a problem for people. So if you set something up so that you're regularly connecting with it, I had one massage therapist, she was so sweet, but every New Year's Eve, before she went out to her New Year's Eve parties, she would sit down with a glass of wine and her state laws and her state regulations, and she would read through them. And she said she knew it was really bad when she had to go through a couple of glasses to get to the end. However, it is really nice to say annually she knows what's going on, what's new, and what's happening, so that she doesn't have someone who has to give her a bad survey at the end and say, okay, here's the results of your actions.
Yeah. I guess I don't understand how some massage therapists think that certain behaviors are okay. And I'll give you an example of that. I worked at a busy spa at a ski resort here in Maine, and we had a group of us, and we didn't need management because we managed ourselves and everything went pretty well. And then several of the MTs left, and we got an influx of 2 or 3 new ones, and they thought it was okay to come to work after they smoked pot in their cars.
Whoa.
So not only did they reek of marijuana, they were high. And they were very surprised that our manager, first of all, figured it out because they thought she was too old. And by the time we got that with them.
Yep.
And they all thought that they said, well, we can do whatever we want on our own time. And the manager said, you can't come to work smelling like marijuana. That's all. Yeah, sure, you did it on your own time because you did it 15 minutes ago, but it's now affecting your job performance, and the clients don't like it. So, how do we teach people that's, I don't understand how you don't know that's wrong.
So I love that connection because, it is the concept that I'm in my 40s now. And so when I look underneath me in age, I start seeing dynamics. And when I look above me in age, I see dynamics. But then I see people above me who are acting like they're younger than me, and people who are younger than me who are acting like they're older than me. And so it all becomes this weird conglomeration of bizarre. But I love that this concept of my time and your time. I had a massage therapist who I met. He lost his massage license. He was unable to practice, and one of his early arguments in the cases that was put against him was that the court used against him that he was an avid pornography watcher and that he was a sexual addict. And he says, but I'm not a sexual addict when I'm at work. And
how did they find out he was a sexual addict?
He actually got arrested for child pornography and for other things. And so, yeah, so that's all of that, that was the start of all the rest. And he was trying to fight to keep his license because he's like, no, I'm really a good massage therapist. I've never done anything wrong in the office. But the state licensing board was like, sorry, we can't have that in our profession. And so this concept of, well, that's my time. Your life bleeds over into your professional career.
Right.
If you are a good, outstanding citizen, it's very unlikely that you're going to be a maniacal, evil, crazy person at work. And vice versa. If you're a maniacal, evil, crazy person in real life, very rarely are you going to wear a halo when you're at work. Being able to be responsible for your behaviors is a trained thing that you will continue to have to address again and again and again as a massage therapist, as well as an individual. So knowing what your personal strengths are and what your weaknesses are as a massage therapist can reflect evenly on the other side to what your personal strengths are and weaknesses are in your life. If you can take no for an answer, if you can take that you don't know what you're talking about and say, you know what, I don't know, but I'd like to learn. More likely when you're in your practice, if you have a client who says, hey, I really don't want you to do deep tissue massage because that's going to hurt, you're more likely to say, okay, so let's make something that does work, instead of, I know what I'm talking about. It'll hurt now, but it'll feel better later. That's a very pushy statement. That's where massage therapists get in trouble for hurting people, is because they think they know better. And it's the client's body, right? You have a partnership when you're working as a massage therapist. It's not you as a specialist working on a car. It's you as a specialist helping them to create a stable and balanced body.
I agree. And when I went to massage school, we were taught that we needed to hold ourselves to a higher standard than other professions, because we are, to put it bluntly, we're touching naked people for a living. So we have to hold ourselves to a much higher standard. And getting back to, this reminded me of the drinking of the wine. When I worked at this resort, clients left and right would say, so meet us at happy hour. I wanted to meet them at happy hour, but you know what? Meeting the clients at happy hour, was that really the best thing to do? If I was out with my husband, and I mean, because it wasn't a big resort, if I was out with my husband and we were having a few drinks with our friends, that's fine. But I can't go meeting Joe Bob and all his friends who are up partying for the weekend for a couple of beers because they think I'm fun. That's not cool. And it's not ethical, and you just can't do it. So I think that sometimes and I don't want to say the younger generation, because you're right, older people do it well. People don't see that you can't cross that line, because what happens when you meet a client and then you have a few too many and then you act stupid and then they look at you and they think, oh my God, I can't believe I gave you money to massage me. What's wrong with you? You're hammered. It's just, and it really doesn't shed a very good light on our profession.
Absolutely. And I guess that goes right into, what is the picture on your Facebook page? What are the things that you're saying on social media? What are the things that you're presenting, not only to generalized people, because a lot of times the people in your social media account are your friends and your family. However, they're also then saying, wait a second, that friend of mine is a massage therapist. Or going the other direction, which can be harder, if you decide to befriend some of your clients and put them on your social media account, and then you're saying things like that, you're connecting with them in a way that's a very personal and unprofessional way. It can be a problem.
Yeah, social media, unfortunately, the downside is it has allowed us to see sides of people that we didn't know existed and that we probably didn't need to know existed.
True.
Right? Before social media, we had our lives pigeonholed. So we could have our professional work friends, and we could have our fun family, and we could have our fun friends, and we could have our stupid weekend friends. And they never bled over into each other. Now, one crazy post from our stupid weekend friends and our clients see it, and it's chaos.
Oh, yes. Well, and I say there's a double-edged sword to all new technology coming out. Social media is one of those where we can say, oh, well, it has this negative aspect where everything bleeds together. But truth be said, if you take that same sword the other direction, people can't hide their feelings, their inappropriate actions. They can't change themselves in those ways. They actually need to present that in a safe standard. So those are things that, yes, it may be negative, but it also gives us a positive to say, you know what, that crazy individual who really wouldn't be safe, they're showing their true colors a lot quicker than they would be feasibly 20 years ago.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think that I've known people for years and years and years, and now because of social media, I know them in a different way, and I'm not sure I need to know them in that different way. It's really interesting, the things that we, especially during the election, you find out all kinds of crazy stuff about people. I hate this one, and I don't like that, and blah blah blah. And I think we're okay not expressing everything that we think and feel. It's okay to not, throw it all out there. So
this last election, at the spa the massage therapy office I worked at, it was hysterical because the day after elections happened, the receptionist was answering the phone, and she answered a phone call, and they said, "I need a massage and I need it now." And they said, "Okay, well, we have a couple of massage therapists, but they couldn't have voted for Trump." And she stopped and explained, "I can't guarantee what the political aspirations of our massage therapists are. I can't tell you who they voted for because I don't know." And she's like, "Well, if you can't give me someone who didn't vote for Trump, I'm just not going to get one." And she'd hang up. And so we were like, wow, I think a really professional massage therapist, no matter who they voted for, would invite the person in, have them take a nice couple of deep breaths, would let them lay on the table, would massage them, and let them rant about their political aspirations or concerns, and would allow it to just go by. I think that's what most massage therapists are trained to do, no matter if they agree or disagree with the political stance. It's not our post to share information. It's our post to be able to accept and to help their physical body respond in a positive way. We don't even have to reflect information. We can just let it go right on past us, and we can move and enjoy. Massage therapy is not psychotherapy, thank goodness, because there are several clients I've had I wouldn't want to be getting into their head. All right.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that there are a lot of massage therapists who think that it is okay to get into people's heads, and it really isn't. Well, we're busy enough trying to take care of the physical body. I do think that it's wise to have a stack of business cards on your counter of therapists who you've spoken with, who would be more than willing to take referrals, because we all have that client or two that once they get on the table and then they're talking about the husband or the wife and the kids and blah, blah, blah. And you have to be really careful with giving unsolicited advice. So I think it's wise to have some business cards where you can say, it sounds like you really could benefit from talking to somebody. Here's the name of a great person who I know, or who, I met, or something like that, whom you might want to speak to.
I love it. Standard one, several weeks ago, we actually went over be willing and able to refer out to the appropriate professional for your client, as well as to not perform any services that are not in your scope of practice. And we're going to go over this again. I mean, it's something that always hits us and always connects with us about, as a massage therapist, what is it that we're looking for, and what are we actively doing and connecting with? If we are acting outside of our scope of practice, I have to say, I'm sad to say this, but it may not slap you in the cheek that time. It may not get you in trouble that time. but you're creating a behavior and you're creating a pattern. And then next time you step up and do something inappropriate, that person might get offended, might realize that you're not doing something appropriate, or the next person, and you create this pattern, and then you start having a greater grandiose expectation of who you are. I know several massage therapists who have gone out and really kind of given some therapeutic advice that they would get from a psychiatrist, and they realized, whoa, I think I went too far with all of that. I think I should stop.
Right.
And that's sometimes, if that's what you have to do, you have to get to that point, but make sure to step back and look at what your scope of practice is and what your purpose is as a massage therapist. That's where
I agree.
Balance. If we don't have that balance, we get in more trouble the more we go. So.
And I think too, if you're a Chatty Cathy massage therapist, you may not even realize that you're crossing that line.
Yep.
I know that I've had clients who say, well, I mentioned that I was having boyfriend troubles. The next thing you know, I had to listen to this massage therapist tell me all about her boyfriend trouble. And I really don't care. So I think that becomes a problem. You think that this client on the table is your girlfriend, and it isn't. They're a client. They may want to speak to you openly and honestly, and because they're in a safe space, but it doesn't mean that you get to share. No sharing.
Well, how many of your friends pay you to hang out with them? Hopefully none.
Right.
I mean, really, that's not part of the friend relationship. That is part of a paid relationship that changes a friendship directly. You should be friends with people who want to and care about you. If there's a payment method in the process, you're not friends with that person. You're an employee. You're a provider to that person. And so being able to hold true to your responsibilities as a provider really allows them to have their space and allows them to deal with the things that they need to deal with. And sometimes you have to say, you know what, I'm not quite paid to hear about these things. I would suggest that you go and seek counseling, because that's going to be more than I can really deal with as a massage therapist. We had a massage therapist who I love and hate the story all at the same time. The massage therapist was a really good massage therapist, and she had a client who was on her table, and he was talking all about his divorce for the full hour, and really just kind of talked and just kept going. And in that hour, at the end of the hour, he thanked her so much for listening to him. He said, I understand that wasn't your job, but you saved me from a visit to my psychiatrist, and gave her a very large tip, gratuity. And as she got the gratuity and she looked at it, she just started feeling sick about it, because it was $100. I mean, it was a big tip, and she was like, oh, okay. So was I being inappropriate in acting and communicating, and how do I deal with this, and how do I make sure that doesn't happen in the future? And she just had a real problem with it. And so in peer mentoring, one of the things that really helps one massage therapist to another is, wait a second, what standards did you hold? What did you say? What did you not say? How did you hold true to yourself? And we came to the point that she had done the right thing. She hadn't crossed any boundaries by being there and listening. However, because she felt uncomfortable, there was something that had to be said. And so the next time he came, she says, I just wanted to let you know that I understand that you appreciated me being an open ear and being willing to talk, or being willing to listen to you. I understand that. I would really expect that you would definitely go see your counselor, because a lot of the things you talked to me about were very personal and very emotional, and it would be better for you to seek counseling that direction than present it on to me. I have my standards, I have my policies, and here's what they are. I lived according to them. I just wanted to make sure that my policies were documented to you, so you knew what to expect and what not to expect. And he was very happy. He was like, oh, no, I totally understand. You followed, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, I just wanted to share my gratitude with you. And she felt very comfortable after that because she got that opportunity to go out and say what it was. She communicated. And that's our ethical standard routinely is if you feel uncomfortable, if you have a gut response, if you're feeling like you're in an ethical dilemma, the first thing you have to do is communicate. Communicate with that client, communicate with that other therapist, communicate with your boss, communicate with the other professional down the hall or the chiropractor that you work with. However it needs to happen, that communication is mandatory. And that's what gets us out of that ethical yuck of life, is to smile, look at it, and push forward. Because if we can do that, we can improve ourselves and each other so much more.
Right.
Jane, thank you so much for joining me today. I enjoyed it. I think we got a lot of the world's trials dealt with and fixed. We'll see if in the next week the whole world changes and there's no more issues in how everything goes, but most likely that's not going to be the case. We'll have new things next week to deal with. But this week,
this is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I'd come back again, Nathan.
Oh, wonderful! I am so glad to hear that. We will put you on the list to reconnect.
On the return list. Thank you.
We have standard 2 today was A and B. Obey the laws, local and state and federal laws, as well as refrain from any behavior that will result in illegal, discriminatory, or unethical actions. Next week, we'll be talking about standard 2 C and D. Accept responsibility for his or her own actions. That's going to be a fun one. Okay.
Oh, it is. I'm gonna listen to that one.
Report to the proper massage therapy regulatory boards within 30 days of disciplinary or discovery of any evidence, such as finding, such as first-hand knowledge, indicating and any unethical, incriminating, or illegal action comments by the certificates. So
that means people have to tell on people?
They have to tell on themselves. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So standard D is I have to tell on myself. I read it as I have to tell on you, or you have to tell on me. No. If something is reported to the state licensing board, I have to tell the National Certification Board. Because either I tell you or the state licensing board tells you. It looks better if I tell you to the National Certification Board than if the state licensing board has to do it. Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So next week, we're going to have some fun. I hope everyone enjoys themselves. Be safe, be well, and have an ethical day, everybody. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
The hour has flown by. We hope you've enjoyed this discussion with Ethics Outside the Box. As you've seen, Nathan uses many second-hand stories of ethical situations. If you'd like to share your story or you have any questions, feel free to contact him and Nathan at educatedtouch.com. If you'd like to register for next week's live webinar, go to shop.educatedtouch.com. Under live webinars, you will see all upcoming webinars. If you have just watched this video and would like continuing education for home study, you can go to shop.educatedtouch.com under the home study options with the date or episode number to receive your exam. If you would please like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, we will keep you up to date on new videos. If you'd like to attend one of our live courses, you can find upcoming scheduled events at www.educatedtouch.com. Thank you for joining us today.